So I thought today we take a look at the tomatoes. Lots of different tomatoes growing in lots of different places and really performing in quite different ways this year. And I'm going to start off with these really scrappy looking hanging basket tomatoes. These are Red Profusion, sown 3rd of February, and they look pretty awful, don't they? But I'm not ashamed of them because we've been harvesting these now for 10 weeks. 10 weeks. And look at them. They're just absolutely, I mean, even though they look like completely dead, some of them, they're absolutely dripping with tomatoes. And we've taken, you know, probably a full tub like this. I've just picked a few from the garden, actually. A full tub like that every single week for 10 weeks of these little plants. And I've got to work out really what that's actually worth. I'm going to fill the tub, weigh it, and look at the value of that harvest because it's been pretty substantial. So 10 weeks of harvesting, and what that means is, I've got to look at my notes here. We started harvesting these the middle of May. So 3rd of February we sowed them, planted them out 20th of March into the hanging baskets, just ordinary cheap garden centre multi-purpose compost. And I fed them with just a combination of this, which is seaweed, and just ordinary sort of tomato food basically, and a little bit more than the recommendations because they're basically in small hanging baskets, and so you just can't get enough feed in here. So I just fed them every day, and I kind of cycled seaweed one day, tomato food the next day, water the next day, and then back to sort of seaweed feed. So, you know, that's kind of it, but not a huge amount of feed each time. So that's how I did those. Really, really pleased with them. Very cost effective. I did have to heat the greenhouse, and I heated it to 10 degrees centigrade, but that was in April and a little tiny bit in May, but not too much because May was pretty warm here. And so that was pretty great. And obviously the harvest from these tomatoes has easily funded the heating of the greenhouse. So that's been pretty cost effective. And the next batch of tomatoes are the ones that I grew in the greenhouse in containers about the same size as the containers that these peppers are in. And so I think they're 30, 35 litre sort of containers, something like that. Again, just ordinary multi-purpose compost. And I sowed those 14th of March, so about just over 5 weeks later. Planted them out 30th of April, again into these containers in the greenhouse. And so in the polytunnel. And only had to protect those a few days with fleece. And we started harvesting those 19th of June, so 6 weeks ago. So 4 weeks later than these. So not a lot later. But what we really noticed is that the quality of these has been far superior. So the ones in the polytunnel were tumbler. These are Red Profusion. The Red Profusion are a bit smaller. The fruits are a bit smaller. But they're just sweeter and not as mushy. You know, they're really got a much nicer texture to them. And yeah, so I've been very pleased with those as well. But what I noticed from those is, keep getting that in my head, is that we had a lot of fruit drop from those. So I've been sweeping a lot of those up. Whereas in here, you can see basically, I haven't cleaned up or anything, almost no fruit drop. These hold on the plants really, really well. And that's important, you know, because I only really harvest, apart from for snacks and things, I only really harvest them once a week. And they're just really good, really, for just an ordinary cherry tomato. So very happy with those. So we've also done an outdoor batch of tumblers and started those on the 14th, oh, same time, yeah, 14th of March. So those on at the same time as the ones that I put in the greenhouse, but I just put them outside. So I had to keep them in pots a little bit longer. And I planted those out 12th of May and started harvesting those 3 weeks ago. So 3 weeks later than the ones that were in the polytunnel. The ones in the polytunnel are outside as well now. Yeah, and I think that they've grown, to be honest, a little bit nicer than the polytunnel ones. The polytunnel ones put on loads and loads of green growth. They're huge sort of plants. And as I said, lots of drop from those. Whereas the ones outside are much smaller, more compact plants. Still a really respectable harvest from those. I'll just put a few photos and things up of those so you can see them. And these are the ones that I just harvested this batch from. So the ones outside. So they're, that's quite respectable from a handful of plants. And very happy with those. And then the black moon. So trying those for the first time. They look, once they're ripe, they're going to be gorgeous. I love that kind of smoky black, sort of smoky red sort of colour of them. Right now they're just black. I've got some of those in the polytunnel. I've got some of them outside. The outside ones are a bit smaller. I don't really know what's going to happen with those. We'll have to see when it comes to harvest. Now, when it comes to the polytunnel ones, I've got a mix of grafted plants that I bought and what plants that I grew from seed, and they're all pretty rubbish, to be honest. I'm very disappointed with those. We're still way away from any of those ripening. The truss sizes are really small. I started mine 3rd of April, planted them out 21st of May. I've got some indoor, I've got some ones that were planted outside as well. They look pretty healthy, healthier than the ones in the polytunnel. But again, they're not, they're still way away from being ready. And as I said, the truss sizes, all the truss sizes of everything that was done later and non-cherries, way smaller than you'd normally expect. So right now I'm kind of like awash really with cherry tomatoes that I started early and really kind of a dearth of main crop tomatoes that we're going to be using for making sort of pasta sauces and all that sort of thing. So we'll see how that goes, but I think we'll be a bit short. Then I always like to start some really late, just to sort of push my knowledge of how late you can grow tomatoes and still get a decent harvest from them. And I've tried two types, two varieties. Tigerella, which was stunning last year, absolutely stunning at this time of year. Huge trusses, growing really well outside. Really incredible. Just shows the difference between growing outside this year and growing outside last year. And some sun gold. So the sun gold I've left in here, and they've grown really well. So the dates on these, so let's just look at the sun gold because they're really the most interesting. So I started sowing those 28th of April. So that is pretty late, and I only planted them out 19th of June. So I know a lot of people start their tomatoes really early, but as I say, 28th of April, that's late, isn't it? And the plants are great. So they've snapped off the leaders because they're kind of bent so much. They were supported on strings. They just snapped the leaders off. So I'm going to have to be careful about how I do that next year. But that one's still okay at that end. But new leaders are growing, so that's not too bad. But the truss sizes on these are way better. Really quite nice. They are obviously a little bit behind the ones in the polytunnel, but obviously they're so much later, but they've got much bigger truss sizes. So I'm quite, I don't think these are far behind really, the ones in the polytunnel, even though they were a month later. And so I'm hoping that these give me a sort of nice late harvest and it looks like they will. And then my last batch are tumblers again, although actually now I kind of wish I'd done red profusion. And these were done 3rd of July, and I've only got 5 of them because I've only got 5 of these hanging baskets. And so I'm going to be replacing these plants once these plants are ready. They're not far off now, you know, so probably 2 or 3 weeks time or something like that. Yeah, and it'd be really nice to have nice, healthy looking tomato plants in here again. And I'm going to see how long I can keep those going into winter and keep my tomato harvest going. So that's all the different ways that I'm doing tomatoes, and all that data that I've just been reading off my laptop, I'll put a link to that in the description. So you can look at the varieties and all the different dates and where I planted them out and how that affected the harvest dates. And if you watch this video again later and look at this link, it'll all be up to date with as things unfold. So you'll see the actual first harvest dates and things like that. And I'll put some comments in about how good a harvest it is and all of that. So my name's Steve. This is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.